There's a reason we keep coming back to 90s celebrity style. The outfits felt effortless, personal, and somehow much less calculated than what we're used to seeing today. So for this video, instead of focusing on just one style icon, I wanted to bring together some of the best dressed women of the decade and look at what made their style feel so timeless. From understated everyday looks to more polished red carpet moments, there are so many ideas here that still feel completely wearable today. Let's take a look at the pieces, silhouettes, and styling choices that defined some of the most iconic celebrity wardrobes of the 90s. There's a reason fashion editors still treat her like a reference image. Vogue has literally described her as the blueprint for that modern fashion editor uniform. Sleek separates that don't date. And I think what makes her different from a lot of style icons is that she didn't rely on spectacle. No dramatic prints, no heavy styling, no look-at-me pieces doing all the work. Her outfits were quiet, but they weren't passive. They were precise. When people say minimalism is easy, they're usually confusing simple with good. Minimalism is actually hard because it gives you nowhere to hide. If the coat is slightly off, you see it. If the trousers bunch weirdly, you see it. If the shoe shape is wrong, the whole look collapses. Carolyn's genius was that she built outfits where every line made sense. Also, and this matters, she worked in fashion. She was a Calvin Klein publicist and held senior roles there, which puts her inside a world where fabric, tailoring, and restraint are basically a language. That background shows up in her wardrobe. She dressed like someone who understood construction and editing. Let's talk about her palette. The point is the feeling. Her wardrobe lived in a tight neutral world. Blacks, creams, charcoals, navies, camel tones. But what made it work is that everything stayed in the same volume. Nothing screamed. Even when she wore lighter tones, they read soft and expensive, not bright or crisp in a trendy way. And she didn't do a lot of competing textures. You'll see smooth wool coats, clean knitwear, slip fabrics that move, crisp shirting, matte leather accessories. It's very low noise. It photographs beautifully, it ages well, and it gives the impression that the person wearing it is in control. Her wardrobe mixed high-fashion minimalism, Prada, Helmut Lang, Jill Sander, Yohji Yamamoto, with everyday staples like Levi's, and that combination is a huge clue. She didn't dress like a brand ad. She dressed like herself. When you look at her most iconic street-style moments, the first thing that hits you is the line. A lot of her looks are built around a long, clean outer layer, usually a structured coat that creates this strong vertical shape. That long coat is doing so much work. It frames the body, it simplifies whatever is underneath, and it gives the outfit gravity. There's even hard evidence of how central this was to her wardrobe. Pieces connected to her, like a Prada double-faced wool coat from the late 90s, have been treated as collectible fashion history. Then there are the trousers. Not extreme, not overly wide, not skinny, just tailored, straight, and quiet. Often paired with a simple knit or a clean top. She understood that if the leg line is right, you can wear the simplest top in the world and still look expensive. And the third big silhouette is the slip. Not as party girl, not styled with glitter. The slip for her is basically minimalism in dress form. One clean piece, perfect drape, no fuss. Even her wedding look, that pearl-toned, bias-cut silk crepe dress by Narciso Rodriguez, became iconic, specifically because it refused the typical bridal drama of the time. So if you want the cheat code here, it's this: long lines, controlled proportions, and fabrics that behave. Now I want to talk about something magazines always pick up on with her: the idea of a uniform. It's not that she wore the exact same outfit every day, it's that she repeated a few formulas so consistently that they became her identity. Vogue literally frames her as the face of that pared-back, modern uniform idea. And I love that, because it's actually the most realistic way to build personal style. So here's what her uniform thinking looks like in real life. You pick one hero piece, usually outerwear or a clean silhouette dress, and everything else is in support. Your accessories don't compete. Your hair doesn't compete. The outfit is never trying to do 10 things. It's trying to do one thing perfectly. This is why she's become the symbol for quiet luxury, but I want to be clear. Her look wasn't about price tags. It was about discipline. It's the discipline that reads expensive. Her accessories are one of the most misunderstood parts of her style because people see minimal and they think none. But she absolutely used accessories. She just used them like punctuation, not like a headline. The sunglasses were often slim and understated. The bags were structured and practical in a way that still looked sharp. And then there are the headbands, the famous hard-shell French-style headbands that became part of her signature and are still written about now, including the detail that she stocked up on them at C.O. Bigelow in New York. That one detail is so revealing to me because it's not glamorous. It's specific. It shows that her style was built from real habits, finding a thing that works and buying it repeatedly. That's not influencer behavior. That's personal style behavior. The beauty look matters because it completes the message. Her hair never looked done in a pageant way, but it always looked considered. Smooth, natural, touchable, often with that slightly undone movement that keeps minimal outfits from feeling cold. And makeup was quiet, more about clean skin and subtle definition than color. The overall vibe is, you notice her, not her beauty routine. Let's do a quick reality check, because this is where people mess it up. The mistake is thinking Carolyn Bessette Kennedy style is just wear neutrals. Because if the fit is off, neutrals will make you look unfinished, not chic. Her looks worked because the shoulder line was right, the trouser break was right, the coat length made sense on her frame. Minimalism is a tailoring game. The second mistake is going too literal. Like, you don't need to recreate a specific paparazzi photo. You need to recreate the balance, structure plus softness, sharp plus calm, polished but not busy. And the third mistake is adding too many quiet luxury signals. Big belts, heavy gold jewelry, overly styled hair, stacked trends, because her outfits were never a performance. They were edited down, not built up. So what we're doing here is building a clean silhouette first, something that creates a long, uninterrupted line. And then we're keeping everything else quiet and tonal, so the shape is the statement. You'll notice how the outfit doesn't rely on prints or logos. It relies on proportion. One piece anchors the look, and everything around it is supporting cast. The accessories stay sharp but minimal, more like punctuation than decoration. And the overall finish is polished, but not overworked. It's that very specific balance where you look expensive, but also like you didn't spend an hour thinking about it. And if you want this to feel modern, the key is fit and fabric. You can keep the same clean idea, but update the cut so it matches how you like to dress now. The vibe isn't retro, the vibe is edited. There's also an interesting cultural layer here. Her wardrobe has become so iconic that pieces associated with her have literally entered the collector world, with Sotheby's auctions and major fashion publications covering them as fashion artifacts, not just celebrity items. That doesn't happen unless the style has real staying power. And Vogue's point, that her look basically crystallized that modern minimalist uniform, is why her influence doesn't fade. She's not a micro-trend, she's a framework. Before looking at individual clothes, it's important to understand why Diana's style remains so compelling. Her wardrobe was built around contrast. She could appear in an elaborate evening gown one night and an oversized sweatshirt the next morning. She wore pearls with tailoring, but she also wore baseball caps, trainers, denim, rugby shirts, and cycling shorts. She could look intensely traditional and unexpectedly rebellious, sometimes within the same outfit. This contrast made her style feel human. She understood the theater of public dressing, but she never completely surrendered her individuality to it. There was also a sense of emotional intelligence in the way she dressed. Clothing wasn't simply decoration. She considered the setting, the people she would meet, how she would appear in photographs, and the kind of emotional atmosphere she wanted to create. For hospital visits, children's homes, and hospices, she often selected cheerful colors and approachable designs. Designer David Sassoon recalled that she liked bright, pretty colors for these visits because they might appeal to and comfort the children or elderly people she met. She also sometimes avoided large hats when they would make physical closeness more difficult. This teaches us something essential about dressing like Diana. The goal is not merely to wear the right sweater or blazer, it's to think about what your clothes communicate. Her best outfits were clear. They had a strong silhouette, an identifiable mood, and usually one memorable idea. Even when the clothes were elaborate, the message was easy to understand. When Diana first entered public life, her style was youthful, soft, and distinctly romantic. This was the period of high collars, ruffles, bows, puffed sleeves, floral prints, delicate blouses, pastel colors, and full skirts. She often wore fabrics and shapes that made her appear almost like the heroine of an English romantic novel. Her early wardrobe also reflected the prevailing taste of the late 1970s and early 1980s. There were pie-crust collars, softly gathered dresses, Fair Isle knits, corduroy, sensible shoes, and an unmistakably British country influence. To recreate this era today, focus on softness rather than excessive decoration. A blouse with a gently ruffled or rounded collar can capture the feeling without becoming theatrical. Pair it with high-waisted trousers, a simple midi skirt, or relaxed denim to keep the look contemporary. A romantic floral dress can work beautifully under a structured coat or masculine blazer. The balance is important. Diana's early clothes were sometimes very detailed, but a modern interpretation should allow one romantic element to lead. You don't need a bow, ruffles, pearls, puffed sleeves, and a floral print in the same outfit. Her knitwear from this period is equally important. Diana wore colorful, humorous, and sometimes slightly eccentric sweaters that softened her public image. This playful knitwear is an essential part of the Diana wardrobe. Look for sweaters with traditional patterns, unusual motifs, bold colors, or a sense of humor. Style them casually rather than treating them as precious statement pieces. The charm comes from wearing something memorable with ease. As Diana's royal responsibilities increased, her wardrobe became more structured and intentional. She had entered a world governed by visual codes. Clothes needed to photograph well, remain appropriate for official engagements, acknowledge local customs during international tours, and help her remain visible in enormous crowds. London-based designers became particularly important to her public wardrobe, allowing her to present a recognizably British fashion identity. This period gave us the classic Royal Diana silhouette: defined shoulders, a neat waist, a straight or softly flared skirt, coordinated accessories, and a strong saturated color. Her suits were rarely timid. She wore scarlet, cobalt blue, emerald green, vivid pink, purple, and combinations of contrasting colors. These shades helped her stand out visually, which was practical when she needed to be seen by large crowds. To translate this royal style into everyday life, begin with tailoring. Look for blazers or jackets with a clear shoulder line and some definition through the waist. They don't need to be aggressively padded, but the silhouette should feel intentional. Diana's tailoring was rarely shapeless. Even her looser jackets usually created some visual structure. A skirt suit is the most literal interpretation, but it's not the only option. A strong blazer with straight trousers can carry the same authority. A tailored midi dress with a defined waist can also create the effect without feeling overly formal. The real secret is coordination. Diana frequently allowed the color or shape of an outfit to continue through its accessories. The shoes, bag, hat, jewelry, and clothing belong to the same visual story. Modern fashion often celebrates deliberate mismatch, but Diana's royal wardrobe demonstrates the power of harmony. This doesn't mean everything must be identical. It means the pieces should appear to have been chosen for the same occasion. Color was one of Diana's most effective tools. She wore neutrals, especially during the 1990s, but her royal wardrobe was filled with color. Red conveyed confidence and visibility. Blue was elegant and dependable. Pink introduced warmth and femininity. Green felt fresh and optimistic. Black, which became increasingly significant in her later wardrobe, brought sophistication and independence. The easiest way to use color like Diana is to choose one clear shade and allow it to dominate. Instead of combining several competing colors, build the outfit around a red jacket, a cobalt dress, a pink sweater, or a green coat. Keep the supporting pieces quiet enough for the main color to retain its impact. Her color combinations could also be playful. She wore contrasting collars, decorative buttons, piping, and color-blocked tailoring. However, there was usually a graphic clarity to the result. Pastels belonged especially to her earlier romantic wardrobe, while jewel tones became powerful tools in her royal and evening style. By the 1990s, white, cream, black, navy, camel, and pale blue helped create a more streamlined image. For a Diana-inspired wardrobe, don't restrict yourself to beige simply because you want to look elegant. Her example shows that refinement and color are entirely compatible. Diana's evening wardrobe was where the theatrical side of her style became most visible. The gowns were designed for state dinners, premieres, charity galas, official portraits, and rooms filled with cameras. They needed to create an immediate impression while still feeling appropriate to her position. In the early years, these dresses were often romantic and elaborate. They featured full skirts, dramatic sleeves, decorative embroidery, bows, ruffles, and shimmering fabrics. Later, her evening wear became much cleaner. Catherine Walker explained that Diana's early designs needed to be more elaborate, while her later clothes became pared down and beautiful from every angle. This transition from ornament toward clarity reflects Diana's broader development. As her confidence increased, her clothes required less explanation. To capture her evening style, look for a dramatic but uncomplicated silhouette. A clean column dress, a softly draped gown, a halter neckline, an off-the-shoulder shape, or an asymmetric neckline can feel distinctly Diana. She often selected designs that emphasized her shoulders, neckline, and posture. Pearls are inseparable from the popular image of Princess Diana, but she rarely made them feel completely conservative. She wore pearl earrings, layered strands, chokers, and pieces that combined pearls with gemstones. Their traditional associations suited royal dressing, yet her styling often made them feel glamorous rather than restrained. This is an important distinction. To wear pearls like Diana, avoid treating them as purely delicate accessories. Pair them with a black dress, strong tailoring, a slightly open neckline, or even a casual knit. The contrast prevents them from appearing overly formal. She also understood the visual power of earrings. Her hairstyles exposed the face and ears, allowing earrings to become part of the architecture of an outfit. For a modern Diana-inspired look, choose jewelry that is visible but controlled. Pearl studs, sculptural gold earrings, a short necklace, or a single cocktail ring can be enough. Her jewelry was often meaningful, but from a styling perspective, its most important role was to complete the composition. It connected the face, neckline, and clothing rather than existing as an unrelated addition. Away from formal engagements, Diana often returned to a recognizably British mixture of country dressing and preppy sportswear. This side of her wardrobe included crew neck and V-neck sweaters, collared shirts, rugby tops, blazers, jeans, corduroy trousers, practical jackets, loafers, riding boots, and printed knitwear. The clothes were relaxed but not careless. They communicated activity, warmth, and a kind of aristocratic informality. To recreate this aesthetic, focus on texture and layering. Combine smooth cotton shirts with substantial wool knitwear. Add a blazer, waxed style jacket, quilted coat, or long wool coat. Use denim, corduroy, tartan, leather, and traditional knit patterns to create depth. The proportions should remain comfortable. Sweaters can be slightly oversized, shirts can be worn with their collars visible, and trousers can have a relaxed, straight shape. A red sweater tied around the shoulders, a rugby-inspired top, or a colorful knit worn with simple trousers can immediately suggest Diana's casual, preppy style. However, avoid making every detail overly polished. Part of the appeal lies in the impression that the clothes were selected for a real life rather than assembled purely for display. Footwear should feel grounded. Loafers, flat boots, simple trainers, and low heels all work. A structured handbag can make the outfit feel more refined, while a canvas or leather tote creates a relaxed interpretation. Diana's athletic outfits may be the most frequently copied part of her wardrobe today. Oversized sweatshirts, cycling shorts, white crew socks, chunky trainers, baseball caps, and large sunglasses now appear completely normal. At the time, seeing a major royal figure photographed in casual gym clothing felt far less expected. The success of these outfits comes from proportion. The upper half is generous and relaxed. The lower half is close to the body. The socks and trainers add weight at the bottom, giving the outfit visual balance. To recreate the look, begin with an oversized sweatshirt or collegiate knit. And pair it with a streamlined lower half, whether that means cycling shorts, leggings, fitted shorts, or slim athletic trousers. The sweatshirt should appear genuinely roomy. A slightly longer length and dropped shoulder will create the right silhouette. Add visible white socks and substantial trainers, rather than delicate, barely noticeable shoes. A baseball cap and sunglasses finish the look, but the styling should remain simple. Diana's gym outfits are iconic, partly because they do not appear overworked. There is also a useful modern lesson here. Her sportswear wasn't designed to make the body look as small or delicate as possible. The oversized shape gave her presence. It looked practical, confident, and comfortable. By the 90s, Diana's style became noticeably more controlled. The romantic excess of the early years began to disappear. Her silhouettes became cleaner, her hemlines often became shorter, and her wardrobe moved toward tailored suits, sleek dresses, monochromatic outfits, simple shirts, fitted trousers, and strong outerwear. This wasn't minimalism in the sense of disappearing. It was minimalism used to create authority. Her later clothes often followed the body more closely, but they were rarely fussy. A square neckline, clean shoulder, defined waist, or sharp lapel replaced the layers of decorative detail found in her earlier wardrobe. Black became especially powerful. The dress commonly known as the revenge dress is remembered not simply because it was short, black, or off the shoulder. Its importance comes from timing, confidence, and contrast. It rejected the visual caution associated with conventional royal dressing and presented Diana as an autonomous woman. The lesson is not that dressing like Diana requires an exact copy of that dress. The lesson is that clothes can mark a psychological shift. Her later wardrobe appeared to ask a different question. Instead of, "What is a princess expected to wear?" it asked, "How do I want to present myself?" To channel this era, choose clothes with fewer details and stronger lines. A fitted black dress, a clean white shirt, an elongated blazer, a trouser suit, a column dress, or a simple knit with high-waisted trousers can all communicate this mood. A Diana-inspired wardrobe is incomplete without tailoring. Her jackets ranged from formal royal suits to relaxed, double-breasted blazers. Some were brightly colored and closely coordinated with skirts. Others were worn more casually with knitwear, jeans, or trousers. The shoulder is the most important feature. A defined shoulder creates the confident upper body shape associated with her style. This can come from subtle padding, a structured fabric, or simply a well-cut seam. The jacket should hold its shape rather than collapsing around the body. Length changes the mood. A shorter, waist-defining jacket feels closer to her official 1980s wardrobe. A longer blazer creates the relaxed, slightly masculine attitude associated with some of her off-duty looks. A fitted single-breasted jacket feels refined, while a roomy double-breasted design looks more casual and modern. Pay attention to buttons. Diana often wore jackets with noticeable gold, pearl, nautical, or contrasting buttons. They gave otherwise simple tailoring a ceremonial quality. For a subtle interpretation, pair a structured blazer with a plain knit and straight trousers. For a more recognizable royal influence, choose a matching skirt or trousers and build the outfit around one clear color. Diana wore dresses across every phase of her public life, but the character of those dresses changed dramatically. Early dresses were romantic, with floral prints, decorative collars, bows, and softly gathered shapes. Her royal day dresses became brighter and more structured. Evening dresses grew increasingly sophisticated, while her later dresses became simpler, shorter, and more body-conscious. This means there is no single Princess Diana dress. When selecting one for your own wardrobe, decide which period you are referencing. For early Diana, look for a soft print, a defined waist, a modest neckline, and movement through the skirt. For royal Diana, look for saturated color, a clear shoulder line, and a polished midi length. For evening Diana, consider velvet, silk, an asymmetric neckline, or a dramatic open shoulder. For 90s Diana, choose a sleek shape with minimal decoration. Let the cut create the interest. Across all of these eras, fit matters more than trend. Diana's most successful dresses created a recognizable silhouette from a distance. That clarity is what makes them remain memorable decades later. Outerwear was central to Diana's wardrobe because so many of her public appearances took place outside. She wore tailored wool coats, military-inspired jackets, blazers, trench coats, quilted styles, colorful coat dresses, and practical country outerwear. A Diana-inspired coat should frame the body rather than overwhelm it. Look for a defined shoulder, strong lapel, visible buttons, or some shaping at the waist. Long coats work well over both formal outfits and casual knitwear. A bright coat can become the entire visual identity of an outfit, while a camel, navy, gray, or cream version offers a quieter interpretation. For her casual style, outerwear can be looser. A bomber, varsity-style jacket, or oversized blazer will work especially well with fitted athletic pieces. Once again, contrast is key. A formal coat can make a casual outfit more elegant, while a relaxed jacket can make a polished outfit feel younger. Diana's footwear followed the needs of her life. For official engagements, she wore classic pumps, slingbacks, and lower heels that allowed her to remain comfortable while standing and walking. For casual outfits, she wore loafers, flat boots, cowboy boots, trainers, and practical shoes. To recreate her formal style, look for pumps with an almond or softly pointed toe. A moderate heel will feel more authentic than an extremely high stiletto. For the casual wardrobe, choose substantial trainers rather than sleek fashion sneakers. Loafers and riding-inspired boots will support the preppy country aesthetic. Her bags were generally structured and purposeful. Top handlebags, shoulder bags, simple totes, and compact clutches worked with the clarity of her outfits. Choose bags with recognizable shapes and minimal branding. The bag should finish the outfit rather than distract from it. Diana's hair was an essential part of her visual identity. Her early feathered style reflected the softness of her romantic wardrobe. Over time, it became shorter, more sculpted, and increasingly modern. The cropped shapes of the 1990s worked perfectly with her cleaner clothes, exposed necklines, and statement earrings. You don't need her exact haircut to capture the effect. Focus instead on volume, movement, and an open face. Her hair rarely appeared stiff or excessively perfected. Even when carefully styled, it retained softness. Her makeup followed a similarly approachable philosophy. The skin looked fresh rather than heavily covered. The eyes were defined, the cheeks had natural color, and the lips usually remained within soft pink, rose, or neutral tones. For a modern interpretation, create gently defined eyes, brushed brows, rosy cheeks, and a moisturized lip. The goal is healthy definition rather than transformation. Diana's beauty was most effective when it supported her expression. Nothing appeared designed to make her face look frozen or distant. For the outfit ideas, the goal is not to copy Princess Diana's looks exactly, but to borrow the balance and mood behind them. Some outfits can feel soft and romantic, while others can be sharper, sportier, or more polished. Think about the contrast between structured and relaxed pieces, bold color and simple neutrals, or oversized shapes and more streamlined proportions. The key is to let one element lead, whether that is the silhouette, the color, the neckline, or the jewelry. The final look should feel inspired by Diana, but still modern and personal. Princess Diana's greatest style lesson is not about a particular dress, sweater, or handbag. It's about becoming more specific. At the beginning of her public life, she was learning the rules and trying many different identities. Over time, she removed what felt unnecessary. The clothes became clearer as she became more confident. She discovered which colors made her visible, which shapes supported her work, which details helped her connect with people, and which silhouettes allowed her to feel like herself. Fashion became a language she could use, even when every other part of her public image was being interpreted by someone else. Historic royal palaces notes that her clothes can be read as a journey from a shy young aristocrat to a global humanitarian. She understood that dressing was part of her work, but she also retained a sense of enjoyment and surprise. That mixture of purpose and pleasure is why her style continues to feel alive. The foundation of Winona Ryder's style is contrast. She often combines soft and severe elements within the same look. A romantic dress may be paired with dark boots. A masculine suit may be softened by delicate jewelry or minimal makeup. A simple black outfit may feel dramatic through texture rather than decoration. Her style sits between several different worlds. There's a slightly intellectual quality in her dark knitwear, understated coats, and simple trousers. There's a rebellious side built around leather, boots, and chokers. There's also a softer romantic side, visible in florals, lace, velvet, satin, and vintage-inspired silhouettes. Rather than choosing only one identity, Winona allows all of them to exist together. Winona became closely associated with Gothic fashion through films such as Beetlejuice, but her personal style has usually been much more subtle than the characters she played. To capture this side of her wardrobe, focus on atmosphere rather than costume. Black is the obvious starting point, but charcoal, burgundy, oxblood, deep navy, dark brown, forest green, and muted purple can create the same mysterious mood. Instead of combining several Gothic details at once, choose one element to lead. This could be velvet, lace, a high neckline, a long dark coat, sheer tights, or substantial boots. The silhouette should remain simple. Winona's style is most effective when the darkness feels natural rather than theatrical. Black is the clearest thread running through Winona Ryder's wardrobe. She wears it in almost every form, including dresses, suits, coats, leather, knitwear, and simple monochromatic combinations. However, her black outfits rarely feel repetitive because she uses different textures and proportions. Leather adds sharpness. Velvet feels richer and more romantic. Satin creates a fluid evening mood. Wool feels classic and slightly academic. If you are building an all-black outfit, combine different surfaces so the look doesn't appear flat. Winona also shows that a black outfit doesn't need heavy accessorizing. A strong neckline, long coat, or clear silhouette can provide enough interest on its own. Minimalism is one of the most important parts of Winona's style. She often wore simple dresses, fitted knitwear, high-waisted trousers, narrow skirts, clean tailoring, and understated shoes. These looks had very few decorative details, allowing the silhouette and fabric to become the focus. To recreate this aesthetic, think about the complete shape of the outfit, rather than collecting several statement pieces. A simple top and trouser combination can be more effective than an outfit filled with obvious trends. The fit should create definition without appearing overly restrictive. Winona's minimalism often has a sense of privacy. The body is visible, but the clothing never feels designed purely to display it. That restraint gives her outfits their quiet confidence. Menswear is another essential part of Winona's wardrobe. She has worn oversized suits, long coats, relaxed jackets, button-down shirts, and high-waisted trousers throughout her career. These pieces create the intelligent, slightly boyish quality associated with her style. The key is to avoid making the outfit look too corporate. Choose tailoring with some character, whether that comes from an oversized fit, a longer jacket, a strong shoulder, or a textured fabric such as velvet, corduroy, or soft wool. Leather gives Winona's wardrobe its rebellious edge. A worn leather jacket can make a delicate dress feel less precious. A leather skirt can sharpen a simple knit, while a long leather coat can make an otherwise basic outfit feel cinematic. Winona's grunge style was rarely exaggerated. She often relied on one relaxed or worn-looking piece, such as a soft cardigan, faded jeans, old t-shirt, practical boots, or oversized jacket. The rest of the outfit remains simple. Grunge works best when the clothes feel genuinely lived in, rather than carefully distressed for effect. Although Winona is strongly associated with darker clothes, she has also worn many romantic and vintage-inspired pieces. Floral dresses, lace, satin, velvet, fitted cardigans, and softly draped skirts bring a more delicate side to her wardrobe. However, these looks rarely feel overly sweet. The prints are often muted, the colors slightly faded, and the styling simple. Short or unfussy hair, dark shoes, or a masculine jacket can introduce contrast. To recreate this side of her style, look for pieces that feel as though they have a history. Winona's evening style is usually elegant but restrained. She's worn slip dresses, velvet gowns, sheer layers, lace, dark florals, and simple bias-cut silhouettes. Instead of relying on heavy decoration, these outfits create interest through fabric, neckline, and movement. To capture this mood, select one element that creates drama. It might be a low neckline, a rich velvet texture, a deep jewel tone, a sheer overlay, or a fluid silhouette. Keep the jewelry, shoes, and beauty choices relatively quiet. The overall effect should feel romantic and slightly mysterious rather than traditionally glamorous. Winona's short hair became one of the defining beauty images of the 1990s. Her cropped cuts, short bobs, and textured fringes worked beautifully with both masculine tailoring and delicate dresses. The contrast made her clothing feel more individual. Her makeup usually follows one of two directions. The first is minimal and natural, with fresh skin, subtle eye definition, and a quiet lip. The second is more dramatic, using dark eyeliner or a deep red lipstick. The key is to avoid making every feature intense at once. A strong lip works best with simple eyes, while smoky eye makeup can be balanced by a more muted lip. For the outfit ideas, the goal is not to copy Winona Ryder's looks exactly, but to capture their understated and slightly rebellious mood. Some outfits can feel dark and minimal, while others can lean more romantic, grungy, or softly tailored. Think about the contrast between masculine and feminine shapes, polished and worn textures, or delicate fabrics and heavier layers. Let one element create the mood, rather than making every piece compete for attention. The final looks should feel personal, intelligent, and slightly imperfect, as though they developed naturally rather than being built around a trend. If you had to describe Gwyneth's style in one sentence, it's this. She lets shape and fabric do the talking, and she keeps everything else on mute. Her outfits rarely have competing elements. You're not going to see wild prints fighting statement jewelry, fighting loud shoes. Instead, she'll pick one strong idea, a clean silhouette, a sharp suit, an architectural gown, and then she'll make sure the hair, makeup, accessories, and even the attitude all line up with that one idea. And that's why her looks photograph so well. Minimal styling doesn't mean boring styling. It means the cut matters more, the drape matters more, the shoulder line matters more. Even when she's wearing something simple, it's almost never sloppy. It's always intentional in a quiet way, like the outfit is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Sit cleanly on the body and look calm. You also notice she's not a trend collector. She doesn't build outfits by stacking microtrends. She builds outfits around classics, tailoring, slip silhouettes, long coats, fine knitwear, and then she tweaks the proportions slightly depending on the era. That's the trick: consistency in the foundation, flexibility in the details. In the 1990s, Gwyneth's style immediately stood out because it felt stripped back at a time when a lot of red carpet fashion was doing the opposite. She gravitated toward slip dresses, clean tailoring, straight silhouettes, and very little styling. Hair was natural, makeup was soft, and nothing felt overly constructed. There was no sense of performance, no trying to be sexy or dramatic. The confidence came from how well the pieces fit and how effortlessly they sat on her body. You can see early on that she understood proportion and restraint, which is something that would become a lifelong signature. The 90s are where you really see her style identity lock in early. A perfect snapshot is her first Met Gala appearance in 1995, where she shows up in a no-fuss, minimalist Calvin Klein look that basically reads like, "I'm not here to play dress-up, I'm here to look good." It's such a clean, stripped-back moment, and it's become one of those reference points people still bring up when they talk about 90s minimalism. What's interesting is that in this era, the styling is as minimal as the clothes. The hair isn't trying to be a moment. The accessories aren't screaming. This era really sets the foundation for everything that follows. The minimalism wasn't a phase or a trend for her, it was a mindset. And once you recognize that, it makes complete sense why her style has aged so well and why those 90s looks still get referenced today. Then she gives us a totally different kind of iconic. The red velvet Gucci suit at the 1996 MTV VMAs, designed during Tom Ford's Gucci era. This is one of those looks that fashion people never stop referencing because it's power dressing without being corporate and sexy without being obvious. And what I love about that suit moment is it reveals another Gwyneth rule that stays true forever. She can wear something strong, even masculine-leaning, but she'll keep the overall styling clean, so the tailoring becomes the statement. It's not, look at my accessories, it's look at this silhouette. Now we have to talk about 1999 Oscars, because that pink Ralph Lauren dress is a fashion history moment, whether you personally love it or not. It was worn at the 71st Academy Awards, and it became so widely discussed and copied that it literally gets treated like a cultural reference point. And it's still tied to her image today. The thing people miss is that even this princess moment is actually very Gwyneth. It's not overloaded with embellishment. It's sweet, yes, but still simple in construction, and the styling is restrained. That's the key. She'll do romance, but she does it in a clean way. She's never been frilly. And you can see how long that dress has followed her, because she's revisited it in modern Goop content years later. Not as a nostalgia gimmick, but almost as a reminder that the silhouette still works. In the 2000s, she gets smoother. The looks feel more refined and less finding herself. Tailoring becomes a steady anchor, and you can feel that she's dressing like someone with a very specific life. Meetings, events, travel, premieres, but she's still not doing loud fashion for the sake of loud fashion. This is where the Gwyneth uniform starts to become obvious. Clean lines, controlled palette, classic shapes. And honestly, once she hits this stage, she rarely leaves it. When Goop enters the picture, it starts as a weekly email newsletter in 2008 and grows into a full lifestyle universe. You can see the wardrobe align even more with the brand's idea of curation. Her style starts to look less like celebrity outfits and more like, this is how I live. Neutrals get stronger, fabrics look more natural and expensive, the vibe becomes calmer. Whether you love Goop or roll your eyes at it, the visual identity is consistent, edited, elevated, and built around quality. Then we get the 2012 Oscars Tom Ford white gown with the cape, one of the clearest examples of her style philosophy on a red carpet. It's minimal, but it's not quiet. It's architectural, it's shape-driven. It makes an impact because it has presence, not because it's covered in sparkle. And what makes this a very Gwyneth moment is that the styling doesn't compete. The hair is sleek, accessories are restrained, the dress is the headline, and everything else is supporting cast. That's the Gwyneth method at its best. In 2017, she returns to the Met Gala wearing Calvin Klein under Raf Simons, which feels like a full-circle nod to her 90s minimalism, but with a modern edge. That's also very on-brand for her. When she does fashion, she tends to do it through clean, iconic American minimalism rather than maximal spectacle. In the 20s, Gwyneth's style feels fully settled. There's no experimentation happening here, and that's intentional. The silhouettes are familiar, the palette is controlled, and the focus is almost entirely on fit, proportion, and fabric. Tailored trousers, clean blazers, fine knitwear, long coats, minimal dresses. These pieces show up again and again, but they never feel repetitive because the execution is always precise. What really defines this era is how she uses subtlety. She often leans into tonal dressing, keeping everything within the same color family and letting texture and structure create interest instead of contrast. The tailoring feels a bit softer, the lines a bit more relaxed, but still very polished. Nothing looks restrictive or overworked, everything looks wearable, comfortable, and considered. If you watch her red carpet history, she basically follows one rule. She lets the silhouette do the work. When she wants impact, she chooses structure. A cape, a column, a sharp shoulder. And then she edits everything else down. That's why the Tom Ford cape dress worked so well. It's minimal, but it's also dramatic in shape. And I also think it matters that her longtime stylist is Elizabeth Saltzman, because their partnership is part of why her style feels so coherent over time. Saltzman has spoken publicly about the realities of red carpet prep and the level of detail it takes, and you can feel that kind of precision in Gwyneth's best looks. They're never chaotic, never overdone. What's also really telling about Gwyneth's red carpet history is how rarely she relies on trends that age badly. When you look back at her most talked about looks, they're not memorable because they were flashy or shocking, but because they were clear. She consistently chooses designs that could exist outside of a specific year. Even when a dress is bold in color or shape, it never feels tied to a trend cycle. That's why so many of her red carpet moments still feel relevant today. They're built on proportion and structure rather than novelty. Another thing that stands out is how disciplined her styling always is. You don't see last-minute chaos in her looks. There's a sense of control, like everything has been considered and then deliberately simplified. Jewelry is minimal, hair is calm, makeup never competes. The outfit leads, and everything else follows. And that kind of restraint is actually very hard to do on a red carpet, where the pressure is always to do more. Gwyneth does the opposite. She edits down. And that's exactly why her presence feels so strong when she steps out. Her everyday style is where you really understand her logic, because it's not about a moment, it's about a system. She'll do tailored trousers, a good knit, a clean shirt, a long coat, pieces that behave well and always look polished even when she's just walking down the street. And she's not afraid of subtle interest either. Tonal dressing, a rich color choice in an otherwise simple outfit, a shoe that quietly upgrades the whole look. There's also something very practical about her palette. She lives in neutrals: khaki, navy, tan, gray, white. And it's not just aesthetic, it's functional. Even in contexts like her much-discussed courtroom looks, the commentary was basically neutral, clean, controlled, nothing distracting. That's Gwyneth in a nutshell. The outfit is never screaming, but it's always saying, "I have this handled." If you want to dress like her, you're not hunting one specific dress. You're building categories that she repeats across decades. Clean tailoring, especially trousers and suits, minimal dresses with strong shape, long coats that create a sleek line, fine knitwear that looks expensive without logos, and shoes that are simple but sharp. Then you keep the accessories restrained and the beauty fresh. And the reason this works is because repetition creates identity. Gwyneth doesn't look stylish because she has a million different aesthetics. She looks stylish because she has one aesthetic that she refines, again and again. To channel Gwyneth, think upgrade instead of decorate. Don't add more details, improve the quality of the details that already exist. If the outfit is simple, you make the fabric better, the fit cleaner, the silhouette stronger, the shoes sharper, and then you stop. That stopping point is crucial, because her outfits always feel like they end exactly where they should. If you're building a Gwyneth-inspired wardrobe, focus on 3 things: clean structure, controlled palette, and a calm finish. You want to look like you're not trying to impress anyone. You're just dressed like yourself, and your standards happen to be high. For outfit inspiration, think in formulas rather than exact pieces. A head-to-toe neutral base where the silhouette is the statement. A simple look upgraded by one great fabric choice. A clean, tailored shape softened by minimal styling. A monochrome outfit where the interest comes from texture and proportion, and an elevated everyday look where everything is basic, but nothing is cheap-looking. Jennifer Aniston is not the kind of celebrity whose fashion is built on constant reinvention. She doesn't disappear into a different character every time she gets dressed. She doesn't chase every new trend just to prove that she can. Her style has always been much more grounded than that. And that's exactly what makes it so interesting, because with Jennifer, the appeal isn't shock. It's recognition. You look at her and you immediately understand the world she belongs to. Sunlit hair, relaxed confidence, clean shapes, warm skin, easy glamour, and clothes that never seem to be working harder than the woman wearing them. There's something very rare about that. Especially now, when celebrity style can feel so fast, so produced, so eager to become a moment. Jennifer's style has never really begged to be noticed. It just stays with you. And I think that's why people still go back to her looks, whether it's Rachel Green in the 90s, her real-life off-duty outfits, or her red carpet appearances today. She represents a kind of style that feels lived in, not staged. Familiar, but never dull. Simple, but not empty. So in today's video, we're going to break down what actually makes Jennifer Aniston's style so enduring. Not just the famous hair, not just the little black dresses, not just the Rachel Green nostalgia, but the whole visual language behind it. Jennifer Aniston's style is often called effortless, but I think the better word might be assured. Because effortless can sometimes sound like nothing is happening. But with Jennifer, there is definitely something happening. It's just not being over-explained to us. Her style is built on ease, but it's a very controlled kind of ease. She understands line, proportion, skin, movement, and softness. Her clothes usually sit close enough to feel feminine, but not so tight that they look uncomfortable. They reveal, but they rarely expose too much. They relax the body, but they still hold a shape. That balance is very Jennifer. She's always been drawn to a warm, natural kind of minimalism. Not the cold, gallery-like version of minimalism where everything feels severe. Hers is softer. More Californian, more human. There is usually some warmth in the hair, some glow in the skin, some relaxed detail that keeps the look from becoming too perfect. Her color world is also very consistent. She comes back again and again to black, white, gray, beige, cream, denim tones, chocolate browns, and soft metallics. These are not loud colors, but on her they don't feel plain. They create a mood. Calm, sensual, grounded, and grown up. What makes her style work is not that every outfit is revolutionary. It's that everything feels connected. The hair, the makeup, the clothes, the posture, the smile, the slightly relaxed attitude. It all belongs to the same person. Of course, we can't talk about Jennifer Aniston without talking about Rachel Green. She wasn't just a character with cute outfits. She became one of the biggest fashion references of the 90s because her wardrobe felt so close to real life. She looked stylish in a way that made people think, wait, I could actually dress like this. Rachel's style had youth, sweetness, confidence, and a little bit of messiness. It wasn't too polished. It had that charming feeling of someone figuring herself out. She dressed for work, for dates, for coffee, for heartbreak, for friendship, for becoming a grown woman in the city. And somehow the clothes became part of that story. There was a reason viewers connected to it so deeply. Rachel didn't look untouchable. She looked aspirational in a way that still felt possible. But Jennifer Aniston's personal style is not just Rachel Green carried into real life. She took some of that same spirit and made it quieter. Less girlish, more adult, less sitcom wardrobe, more personal uniform. She kept the ease, she kept the softness, she kept the appeal of simple clothes worn well. But she edited the whole thing into something calmer and more timeless. So Rachel Green may have made Jennifer a fashion reference, but Jennifer's own style is what made that reference last. Jennifer's 90s style has that very specific quality that people are always trying to recreate, but rarely get exactly right. It looks casual, but it's not careless. It looks sexy, but not overly styled. It looks minimal, but not cold. It has this relaxed intimacy to it, as if the outfit wasn't put together for a fashion moment, but simply happened because she knew what suited her. That's why the images still circulate today. They don't feel like old celebrity photos, they feel like a mood board that still makes sense. There was a looseness to her 90s style. The hair was natural looking, the shapes were clean, the attitude was unfussy. Even when the look was very simple, there was always a sense of personality. She didn't need a complicated outfit to feel interesting, and in many ways, that was the power of 90s Jennifer. She understood the appeal of not doing too much. Jennifer Aniston's everyday style is probably the reason people trust her as a style icon, because it doesn't feel like it was created for a headline. There's nothing desperate about it, nothing overly constructed, nothing that makes you feel like she left the house hoping the outfit would become a viral image. What she does so well is make relaxed dressing look adult. That sounds simple, but it's actually one of the hardest things to do. A casual look can easily become too plain, too young, too unfinished, or too reliant on trends. Jennifer avoids that by keeping everything balanced. There is always a sense of proportion, a sense of grooming, a sense of calm. Her everyday style has this quiet, expensive feeling, but not in a flashy way. It's not about logos or obvious status. It's about the way everything is chosen. The fit, the texture, the tone, the way the hair sits, the way the whole look feels easy on the body. She also understands that casual clothes need attitude. Without attitude, they are just basics. With Jennifer, the attitude is relaxed, slightly private, a little sun-kissed, and very self-possessed. Jennifer's red carpet style is interesting because it's glamorous without being loud. She's not usually trying to create a fashion spectacle. She's not someone who treats the red carpet as a place to become unrecognizable. Instead, she brings her own language into a more elevated setting. The shapes are usually clean, the styling is usually restrained, the hair is usually soft, the makeup is warm, and the overall feeling is always very much her. This is why black has become such an important part of her red carpet identity. On Jennifer, black does not feel like a backup plan. It feels like a signature. Sometimes sleek, sometimes sensual, sometimes classic, sometimes very Hollywood, but always connected to her. She knows how to let a dress breathe. She doesn't overcrowd it with too many styling choices. And even when she wears something lighter, shinier, or more decorative, it still has that Jennifer restraint. The look never feels like it has taken over her. She remains the focus. She wears gowns as a more polished version of herself. Jennifer Aniston's beauty look is not separate from her style. It's one of the main reasons her style works. Her hair, especially, is part of her fashion identity. The Rachel haircut became a cultural phenomenon, but Jennifer's real beauty signature is bigger than one haircut. It's the idea of hair that looks healthy, expensive, sunlit, and touchable. There's always movement. There's always warmth. It rarely looks harsh or overly sculpted. Even when it's clearly styled, it still has that relaxed finish, which is exactly what makes it feel so connected to her clothes. Her makeup follows the same philosophy. She doesn't usually use beauty as a mask. She uses it to bring out warmth, bronze skin, soft eyes, natural lips, and that healthy glow that makes everything around it look better. And that's why a very simple look can feel complete on her. The beauty does a lot of the emotional work. It brings softness to minimal clothes. It brings warmth to black. It brings polish to casual outfits. This is something people often miss when they try to copy celebrity style. The clothes are only one part of the image. With Jennifer, the hair and makeup are just as important as the wardrobe. She has created a beauty language that is consistent enough to feel iconic, but natural enough to feel believable. The first key piece is, of course, denim. Jennifer has always had a very natural relationship with jeans, not the kind of denim that looks overly styled or trend-obsessed, but the kind that feels broken in, easy, and part of someone's actual life. Whether the overall mood is more relaxed, more polished, or more city-ready, denim gives her style that familiar Jennifer ease. Another major piece in her wardrobe is the simple tank top. It gives her outfits that casual, sunlit, slightly sporty quality, but it also keeps them feminine. It's minimal, but not cold. Relaxed, but not careless. This is probably one of the most Jennifer Aniston pieces you can imagine. Then there's the little black dress, which is maybe the most consistent piece in her entire style history. Jennifer's relationship with the black dress isn't just a red carpet thing, it's part of her visual identity. She's worn so many versions over the years. Slinky, strappy, halter, column-like, mini, midi, glamorous, understated. But the mood is usually the same. The dress never feels like it's trying to overpower her. It frames her. A very underrated key piece in her wardrobe is the tailored vest. This is something that connects beautifully to both Rachel Green's Ralph Lauren era and Jennifer's more recent city style. A vest gives her outfit structure without making them feel stiff. Another essential is the black blazer. Her blazers usually feel easy, not corporate. They add polish, but they don't erase the softness of the look. That's very important to her style. A blazer, for Jennifer, isn't about looking overly formal. It's about giving a casual outfit a little more backbone. The slip dress and strappy dress are also key to understanding her 90s influence. Vogue has specifically pointed to her strappy mini dresses and slinky slips as part of why her 90s style still feels so relevant. These pieces work on Jennifer because they capture that balance she does so well. Softness with confidence, simplicity with sensuality. Then we have flip-flops and barely there sandals, which are honestly more important to her style than people might think. She's pairing them with everything from casual looks to dresses back in her Friends era, and still wearing them decades later. This says so much about her style. She is not afraid of a very relaxed shoe. In fact, that relaxed shoe is part of what keeps her outfits from looking too styled. It brings everything back down to earth. It adds that California ease. A Jennifer Aniston wardrobe also needs clean black separates. In recent years, she has leaned into all-black looks in a way that feels very New York, very sleek, but still true to her. This is a good example of how her style has evolved. The same love of simplicity is there, but it feels more mature, more urban, more controlled. Another key piece is the large, practical tote bag. This may sound small, but it matters. Jennifer's bags often feel useful rather than decorative. She's not always reaching for the tiny, overly precious bag. Sometimes the bag looks like it belongs to a real day. And finally, we have sunglasses and understated jewelry. Jennifer uses accessories in a very controlled way. She doesn't usually build an outfit around them. She uses them to finish the mood. Sunglasses give her that private, off-duty celebrity feeling, while small gold jewelry adds warmth without making the look feel busy. So, if we were really naming the Jennifer Aniston key pieces, they would be Lived-in denim, simple tanks, black dresses, tailored vests, soft blazers, strappy dresses, flip-flops, black separates, practical tote bags, sunglasses, and quiet gold jewelry. If you want to get Jennifer Aniston's look, start with the idea of ease. Her style is never too loud, too decorated, or too obviously styled. It's calm, flattering, and very sure of itself. Keep the palette soft and familiar. Black, white, beige, gray, denim blue, warm browns, and cream tones all belong to her world. The colors are quiet, but they make the whole look feel more expensive and timeless. Fit is everything. Jennifer's outfits work because they sit naturally on the body. Nothing feels too forced, too oversized, or too complicated. The shape should feel relaxed, but still intentional. For daytime, think sunlit, casual, and slightly undone, but not messy. For a more elevated mood, add a little structure without making it feel stiff. And for evening, keep the glamour clean. One strong mood, soft hair, warm makeup, and not too many extras. The real Jennifer Aniston trick is editing. If the look already feels good, don't keep adding. Let it breathe. Her style works because it feels natural, confident, and completely her own. For me, Kate Moss still matters because she changed how fashion looks when it's lived in, not staged. Before her, models felt very distant, very polished, very perfect, almost untouchable. Kate felt different. She looked like someone you might pass on the street, someone who just had an incredible sense of self. She wasn't performing fashion, she was just existing in it. She never relied on constant reinvention. Instead, she repeated the same shapes, the same moods, the same kinds of pieces over and over again, and somehow that repetition became her signature. It made her style feel honest. What I love most is that her outfits don't feel tied to a specific moment in time. You can look at a photo of her from the 90s, from the early 2000s, or from much later, and it still makes sense. It doesn't feel dated, it just feels like Kate. There's also a sense of comfort in the way she dresses. Real comfort. Clothes that move, clothes that feel worn in, clothes that look like they belong to her life. Nothing stiff, nothing overly precious, and I think that's something we're all craving more and more. In a time where style can feel very loud and very curated, Kate Moss is a reminder that you don't need to try so hard. You don't need to chase every trend. You just need to know what works for you and stick with it. And that, to me, is why her style still matters. It's not about nostalgia, it's about confidence, ease, and trusting your own instincts. When I think about Kate Moss style, I don't really think about clothes first. I think about attitude. Her mindset is very simple but also very rare. She dresses for herself. Not for trends, not for the moment, not to make a statement. And I think that's why her outfits always feel so natural. There's a strong sense of instinct in the way she dresses. It feels like she gets dressed without overthinking, without planning too much. Almost like she just reaches for what feels right that day. And somehow, that ease becomes the most powerful part of the look. She also doesn't chase novelty. She's not interested in looking new all the time. Instead, she repeats what she loves. The same silhouettes, the same types of layers, the same mood. And rather than feeling boring, it actually builds identity. You start recognizing her style before you even recognize her face. Another big part of her mindset is balance. There's always a contrast, something masculine mixed with something delicate, something relaxed next to something sharp. That tension is what keeps the outfit interesting without it ever feeling styled. And she knows when to stop. That's something I really admire. She doesn't add unnecessary details. If the outfit works, she leaves it alone. No extra accessories, no forced finishing touches. She lets the clothes breathe. I also think she's very comfortable with imperfection. Slightly messy hair, makeup that looks lived in, clothes that aren't pristine. Nothing feels too precious. And that makes everything feel more real, more wearable, more relatable. At the end of the day, the Kate Moss mindset is about trust. Trusting your taste, trusting repetition, trusting simplicity, and trusting that you don't need to explain your style to anyone for it to be valid. And once you understand that mindset, dressing like Kate Moss stops being about copying her looks and starts being about building your own version of that ease. What I love about Kate Moss is that her style evolves, but it never really changes. The core stays the same. You just see it mature, soften, and refine over time. In the early 90s, Kate Moss didn't look like what a model was supposed to look like back then. And that was the point. Everything felt raw and unpolished. There was a kind of quiet rebellion in the way she dressed. Her outfits were simple, almost minimal, but never clean or sharp. There was always something a little undone. Hair that looked air-dried, makeup that barely existed, clothes that felt lived in. Slip dresses worn like everyday pieces, leather jackets that looked like they had a story. Boots that grounded everything. It wasn't about looking pretty, it was about looking real. And that honesty completely shifted fashion at the time. As we move into the late 90s and early 2000s, her style opens up and becomes more expressive, but still very instinctive. This is the era people often think of first when they picture Kate Moss. There's a strong bohemian influence mixed with that rock and roll edge. Flowing silhouettes paired with tougher elements, softness and grit living in the same outfit. Nothing feels styled for the sake of it. The looks feel collected over time, almost accidental. Vintage pieces, layered textures, scarves, belts, and dresses that move when she walks. Even when the outfits are more dramatic, they still feel effortless. She could look completely relaxed during the day and then turn around and wear something very bold at night, without ever losing that ease. And that's what makes this era so influential. It feels free, personal, and slightly rebellious, without trying to shock. This is also when her off-duty looks really start shaping fashion. Paparazzi photos become references. What she wears walking down the street suddenly matters just as much as what she wears to an event. In the last decade and beyond, her style becomes calmer, more grounded, and even more confident. You see more tailoring, more structure, but never stiffness. Blazers that feel natural on her, simple layers, neutral tones that don't ask for attention. Everything looks intentional, but still very easy. What's beautiful is that she doesn't try to reinvent herself to stay relevant. She just keeps dressing like herself. The same silhouettes, the same mood, refined with better fabrics, better fit, and more confidence. And I think that's the most inspiring part of her style evolution. It's not about transformation, it's about staying true to who you are and letting your style grow with you instead of against you. When it comes to Kate Moss, color is never the loudest part of the outfit. And I think that's very intentional. Her palette is built around tones that feel grounding and familiar. Black, white, gray, soft beiges, and warm browns show up again and again. These are colors that don't ask for attention, but they create a strong base. They let the silhouette, the texture, and the overall mood do the talking. Denim is also a big part of her palette. Not overly processed or trendy denim, but classic blues that feel worn in and natural. Denim that looks like it belongs to everyday life, not just a photo shoot. What I find interesting is that she rarely uses color to make a statement. When color does appear, it's subtle. Earthy tones, muted greens, deep reds, sometimes a soft metallic. Nothing too bright, nothing too polished. It always feels blended into the outfit rather than standing apart from it. And I love that she doesn't rely on contrast in an obvious way. There's no harsh color blocking. Everything feels slightly softened, slightly lived in. Even when she wears black or gray, it never feels sharp or severe. It feels relaxed. Her color palette also makes her style incredibly adaptable. You can mix pieces from different years, different eras, and they still work together. That's one of the reasons her wardrobe feels timeless rather than trend-based. If you're trying to channel Kate Moss style, I think the key is to choose colors that you can wear again and again without getting tired of them. Colors that feel like home. Because with her, it's never about standing out through color. It's about creating a mood that feels effortless and real. With Kate Moss, texture is everything, even more than color. Her outfits often look simple at first glance, but when you really look closer, it's the mix of fabrics that makes them interesting. She doesn't rely on prints or obvious details. She lets the materials do the work. Leather shows up a lot in her style. Soft, worn-in leather that moves with the body, not stiff or shiny. It adds that slight edge, that grounded feeling, without ever overpowering the look. Then there's silk and satin. Slip dresses, flowing tops, pieces that feel light and fluid against the skin. What I love is how she mixes these softer fabrics with heavier ones. Silk next to leather. Something delicate paired with something tougher. That contrast is very much part of her signature. Fur is also a huge part of her texture story, especially in her late 90s and early 2000s looks. Whether it's vintage fur or faux, it's never styled in an obvious or glamorous way. It's usually thrown on casually, almost like an everyday layer, which makes it feel effortless rather than dramatic. It adds warmth, richness, and that slightly rock and roll energy she's so known for. Denim is another constant. Not perfect, not overly tailored. Denim that feels lived in, broken in, like it's been worn for years. It adds an everyday ease to everything she wears. You also see a lot of wool and knit textures, especially as her style becomes more refined. Coats, blazers, and layers that add warmth and structure without feeling stiff. Everything still feels wearable, comfortable, and real. Sheer fabrics appear quietly throughout her style as well. Nothing overly dramatic, just enough transparency to add softness and a sense of movement. It never feels exposed, it just feels relaxed. What ties all of this together is that nothing feels too new or too perfect. The fabrics look like they belong to her life. They crease, they move, they age well. And that's a big reason why her outfits feel timeless rather than tied to a specific moment. If you're inspired by Kate Moss style, I think focusing on how something feels is just as important as how it looks. The texture, the weight, the way it moves when you walk. Because with her, it's always about clothes that live with you, not clothes that wear you. When people try to dress like Kate Moss, they often look for specific items. But what really makes her style work isn't the pieces themselves, it's how consistently she returns to the same ideas. The blazer is a big one. Slightly oversized, relaxed, never too sharp. It's not there to look powerful or polished, it's there to add structure without effort. She wears it like a second skin. Then there's the slip dress. Simple, fluid, often worn in the most casual way possible. It's never styled to look overly elegant. It's just a base, something she can throw on and live in. Skinny or slim-fit jeans are another constant. Not trend-driven, not exaggerated. Just jeans that sit close to the body and feel familiar. She wears them endlessly, with different layers on top, proving how powerful a simple, well-loved pair of jeans can be. Mini shorts show up throughout her style too, especially in her more boho rock moments. Paired with heavier layers, boots, vests, or jackets, they never feel overly styled. They feel relaxed, almost accidental. Outerwear plays a huge role in her looks. Coats, jackets, layers that immediately set the mood. Fur coats in particular are iconic for her. Whether vintage or faux, she throws them on casually, letting the texture speak for itself. Leather jackets are just as important, soft and worn in, adding edge without trying too hard. Boots ground almost every outfit. Knee-high boots especially add strength and attitude, even when the rest of the look is simple or minimal. They give weight to the outfit and keep everything balanced. And then there are sunglasses. Not as an accessory, but almost as part of her identity. They give her that slightly distant, cool energy, and they complete the outfit without effort. What's important is that she repeats these elements. She doesn't chase novelty. She builds a wardrobe around pieces that feel familiar and reliable. And that repetition is exactly what makes her style recognizable. Kate Moss' hair and makeup never feel like the focus, but they're a huge part of the overall effect. Her hair almost always looks untouched, soft waves, a bit messy, sometimes imperfect in the best way. It doesn't look freshly styled, and that's intentional. It feels lived in, like she didn't spend too much time thinking about it. Makeup is very similar. The skin looks natural. There's rarely anything heavy or overly defined. Sometimes there's a slightly smudged eye, sometimes barely anything at all. Lips are usually kept simple. What I love is that her beauty never looks separate from her clothes. It's all part of the same mood. Nothing feels too finished, too polished, or too controlled. There's a confidence in allowing things to be a little undone, and that's something many people forget. Trying too hard to look effortless usually does the opposite. Kate just lets things be, and that's the key. Hair and makeup are there to support the outfit, not compete with it. Dressing like Kate Moss today isn't about recreating her 90s looks or copying specific outfits from photos. It's about keeping things simple and trusting your instincts more than trends. Choosing pieces you can wear again and again, letting repetition become part of your style instead of something you avoid. It's also about contrast, mixing something soft with something strong, something relaxed with something structured. That balance is what makes her outfits feel interesting without being loud. Another important part is knowing when to stop. Not adding too many details, not over-accessorizing, letting the outfit breathe. And maybe most importantly, it's about comfort, real comfort. Clothes you can move in, live in, and feel like yourself in. If you take one thing from her style, let it be this. You don't need more clothes, you need more confidence in the ones you already love. Because at the end of the day, Kate Moss isn't a trend. She's a mindset. And that mindset will always feel relevant. Kate Moss's festival style is one of the most influential parts of her fashion legacy. Not because it's tidy or polished, but because it feels utterly real and lived in. She's been a regular at Glastonbury since the early 90s, long before festivals became a fashion moment, and her looks from those years still get referenced today. Her festival outfits are grounded in practicality, but never boring. Think denim cutoffs paired with boots that could handle mud, hunter wellies with unexpected pieces like metallic dresses, and skinny jeans tucked into tall rubber boots that look cool even in rain or grass. There's a boho rock energy to Festival Kate that feels very personal rather than curated. You'll see pieces that feel collected over time, denim shorts with a simple top, a waistcoat added on instinctively, a scarf tied loosely, a belt slung low, and all of it balanced with footwear and outerwear that actually works in an unpredictable outdoor setting. Some of her most memorable festival moments mix unexpected elements. A metallic mini dress worn with wellies, a bandana or scarf tied carelessly, a leather jacket thrown over something soft, or vintage boots and accessories layered without effort. What I love about her festival style is that she never treats it like a costume. Nothing is over-styled. Nothing looks like it was planned by a stylist. She dresses like herself, rock and roll, a bit gritty, always comfortable, and that's why people still try to capture that mood decades later. Kate Moss's red carpet and party style feels like the most natural extension of who she already is. It's elevated, yes, but never transformed. When she steps into an event space, she doesn't suddenly become more polished or more dramatic. She brings the same instinctive, relaxed energy she has in her everyday style, just with a slightly sharper edge. That's what makes her looks feel memorable without ever feeling forced. Her choices are surprisingly varied. Sometimes it's a long, fluid silhouette that feels quietly elegant. Other times it's a short dress, something playful, something that feels almost thrown on. Even when there's sparkle or shine, it never takes over. The outfit still feels light, easy, and very much her. What really ties her red carpet and party looks together is how she finishes them. She almost always grounds the look with outerwear. Fur or leather, thrown over the shoulders or worn casually, never styled too carefully. That final layer takes the look out of occasion wear territory and pulls it back into her world. A sleek dress paired with a fur coat suddenly feels relaxed. A delicate look finished with a leather jacket feels tougher, cooler, more real. It's that contrast that keeps her from looking overly styled, even at the most formal events. At parties especially, this approach feels very clear. She dresses for movement, for being comfortable, for enjoying herself. And that's why her red carpet moments last. Not because they're loud or theatrical, but because they feel honest. She shows up as herself, adds just enough elevation, and then lets her confidence do the rest. When it comes to building outfits like Kate Moss, I think the biggest shift is moving away from copying and toward understanding. She always starts with a very simple base. Something easy, something familiar. Nothing that already feels like a statement. Then she adds one element that slightly changes the energy. Something masculine, something edgy, something unexpected. And that one detail does all the work. She doesn't stack layers of interest. She chooses one direction and commits to it. What's just as important is knowing when to stop. She doesn't keep adding. If the outfit works, she lets it be. No extra accessories, no unnecessary layers, no last-minute fixes. And I think that's where most people get it wrong. We tend to overthink. We want the outfit to feel complete, finished, impressive. Kate Moss lets the outfit breathe. There's space. There's ease. If you take anything from her approach, let it be this. Start simple, add one strong idea, and then step back. Because with her, the magic is always in what she chooses not to add. What I love most about 90s celebrity style is that it never really feels like a costume. Even decades later, so many of these looks could easily fit into a modern wardrobe. And while every woman in this video had her own very distinct style, there's a shared sense of simplicity, confidence, and individuality that makes this era so inspiring. Let me know which 90s style icon is your favorite and who you'd like to see in a full style guide next. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.